thank you, Stefan, for joining me today. Stefan, CEO over at Shopware. If you don't know who Shopware is, I'll get Stefan to do a little introduction to that in just a moment. But today we're going to be talking about Agentic Commerce, and things are moving very fast at the moment in this space. There's still a lot of hurdles. We'll get into that shortly. But Stefan, before we dive into Agentic Commerce, would you mind telling us, for those of us who don't know about Shopware and some of your story, how did you get started? When did you get started? And what is Shopware?
Sure. Thank you. I founded the company 25 years ago with 16 years. So it was quite a ride in Germany to get the allowance to do it. And since then, I basically do it together with my brother, Sebastian. And I would say interesting fact that we are two completely different persons. So I'm the tech nerd of the family, and he is more into design, marketing, and the creative side of things. And that is a good description or a good introduction, because of that was from the beginning also a little bit the core DNA of Shopware. Also back then, 2000, we had a perspective on the market. We were looking on e-commerce solutions, and back then it was basically Intershop, super expensive, OS commerce, the super bad code quality. And it was then part of the decision making to start creating e-commerce solution from scratch. And what was important for us, basically on the one side, having a really good code quality, so making sure that the solution can be used by thousands of people, that the solution can be adapted through integration partners, that we are capable of building out an ecosystem. So a lot of thinking from the beginning to make sure that it is possible later on. And on the other side, we put a lot of effort on marketing. So basically we thought, if we would be a merchant, what would a merchant really like? Basically also, we want a merchant to spend time on, and what should be automated. It was always a little bit like this perspectives that play a huge role in the product development. And it was the path where I make a little bit now progress on the next 25 years. I would say a very important next milestone for Shopware was 2010. It was the decision then to put Shopware under open source license. And that was from 200 installations. 1 year later, that was skyrocketing the installation base of Shopware. And that's still, if I think around our topic today, Agentic Commerce, from my perspective, a really important foundation, what makes perfectly sense in the age of AI, right? As the source code of Shopware is available under open source license. So everybody, including agents, can read the source code, and therefore we see a lot of potential in automating integration work and making sure that a merchant really can differentiate. We'll talk about it in a couple of minutes in more detail, but just to make clear what Shopware stands for, right? It's flexibility, it's complex commerce. So we want hard problems on the side of our merchants together with partners. And there, I think this philosophy of thinking in open source paradigms makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's great. In 2002, I built my first e-commerce site using OS Commerce and PayPal. And there wasn't another payment processor out there. And there really wasn't another e-commerce shopping cart platform either. So I had to build it like that. And funny enough, obviously there's been lots of evolutions, but people still shop in that kind of similar e-commerce shopping cart way today, where they view a catalog, they put something into a basket, they go through a checkout process, and they end up buying the thing that they set out to buy. Getting into Agentic Commerce now, and thank you for that backstory about Shopware as well. We are going to see a big shift in the way that people buy things, I think now. The biggest shift since the kind of online basket appeared, right? When you guys actually created Shopware and made it a much more beautiful and easy experience, no matter how complex your merchant needs were. But I think Agentic Commerce is going to be a seismic shift in the way in which people buy things. How are you guys thinking and defining Agentic Commerce today? And I've heard you speak a little bit about it in your presentations, but how are you defining it? What are you thinking Agentic Commerce is today for the world?
basically, we have two distinct perspectives on it, I would say. What you just described is really important to understand. If you think it, if you think it further, right? There are large companies, take OpenAI, Perplexity, Anthropic, doesn't matter how it is, Microsoft, a lot of companies out there with really smart foundational models. They are building consumer applications on top, ChatGPT, and so on and so forth. And now they are adding, let's say, the commerce layer to it, right? There's a famous quote, I don't know exactly from whom, but humans are working in a relatively easy kind of way. So basically, if you get understanding of that something is really saving you time and you don't have to invest much energy on it, then basically it will be automatically the new standard, right? And that is a bit on how ChatGPT skyrocketed over the last 3 years, I would say. You see, they have more active users a day than anything that comparable, let's say, from the consumer side. And we already see a lot of first signals from our merchant base that they see in their traffic signals a strong increase of traffic that comes from the agent side, right? And, I think if you have a perspective on it today, I would say for most of the merchants, okay, there will be something in the future, but it's not a big issue. But that will change very soon. And why is it the case? Because of consumers are not just informing themselves in ChatGPT, they will have the full buying decision-making process automated, and they will not get in touch with the brand anymore. So in the decision window of a large language model, it's maybe 500 milliseconds or something like that. The full negotiation process or the thought process of who has the highest probability to fulfill the transaction in the best possible way will basically result in exactly one shop, one merchant, right? And if you think around, okay, what is the decision criteria? It's relatively easy. It's probably a little bit of trust signals, it's the price, and it's availability, right? It's super simple. And that means on the other side that probably 10,000 of e-commerce businesses will have a huge problem in differentiation because of if price and availability is the only option to differentiate, so to say, in this game, then EBITDA and other metrics will look very different from today, I would say. And that is something where the small business to mid-size segment of e-commerce will probably have a lot of problems in adapting in this speed. That is one aspect. In contrary, we at Shopware see that was always one selling point of Shopware, that we say basically also today and also 5 years ago, a merchant should have invested in differentiation and in experiences. So that's basically maybe just speeding up the natural kind of
selection process.
But nonetheless, that is a huge topic, right? And that will probably affect also a lot of our merchants. And therefore, we want not just talking about it, as we just founded the Agentic Commerce Alliance to us and other industry partners aligning on standards there to make sure that we are not just receivers of what OpenAI is doing and the others are doing, but that we also can have an opposite kind of development on the e-commerce industry in general, right? And the other perspective that we have on Agentic Commerce is a little bit the B2B one. If you think around how B2B is working from a process perspective, we have roughly in our customer base a B2B ratio, I would say, of 40 to maybe even 50%, or it's really large. And a lot of the projects are really complex. So basically they are implementing all of these processes then also in Shopware. And nowadays, I would say you can through away 75% of these processes because of that are all processes that are based on humans in the middle, right? And that is something where we see a lot of potential to automate and also to automate the transactional side of the thing. It's really interesting because of it has a strong relationship also to the payment side. Also, if you want to automate a transaction, you have also to find a solution on how to make the payment transaction safe. And that makes it really interesting. But all in all, I'm completely with you. That will be the biggest disruption that we ever saw in e-commerce.
Yeah, you're talking about fundamentally, and I think this will sound really stupid and silly when in years to come when we look back on this, but you're talking about the shift on how a human interacts with the computer or their device. And so historically, we've searched for things or gone directly to the brand site, bought something and checked out. But now we're asking an agent to find something, present results, even present negotiations potentially in that B2B scenario where you've got some more complex buying decisions and some more complexity. And then perhaps even autonomously go on that purchase journey, or even prompt the user for input on that purchase journey and complete the transaction. I never want to have to put my address details again, get that thing shipped to my house or downloaded to my device, whatever. That's the shift. That's what we're seeing now with people using these consumer facing models with ChatGPT. Like someone is interfacing with the chat scenario, speaking to a robot, and that robot is performing tasks somewhat autonomously. And that's the agentic part, where now that's going to define and completely change how items are searched and found and then presented and then purchased. So that whole journey is going to shift. And I'll zoom in on one of those points that you raised around the kind of what will be presented in terms of the choice and that differentiation. Are retailers afraid of that? Are they scared of that? Have you heard many people ask questions around that?
It's starting now. I think, as you also described, it's early in many merchants. That is not just connected to this topic. I would say that is a typical example for there's something coming, but people are thinking it's a kind of linear development, a little bit like today it has an effect of 2%, and I expect that in 1 year that are 20%, and 1 year later maybe 40%. And the reality is that I think that it's way faster. Maybe something like that already in the beginning of next year, we are talking about a huge adoption across certain B2C verticals. And that is what makes me thinking that it is important really to not just answering questions, because we don't see many questions right now, but doing the opposite and trying to find already answers to the questions that are not probably arriving in a couple of months. And I think a good example for it is the question on how could a merchant differentiate in such a world. So let's say you are a brand, you have invested over the time millions in your brand image, you have a loyal customer base, and you also spend a lot of effort on creating a really good customer experience. So how to describe this in numbers that the agent is not just understanding, but also trusting, right?
Yes.
And that is something where it's a good example, because that is one of the projects we want to do in the Agentic Commerce Alliance, to define a standard data format that is, besides the hard facts of a company and products like price, availability, technical specs, we also want to define a way on how to get this trust signals, this loyalty scores, this how the supports delivery window of a merchant in a standardized way, because of that is really then creating also a chance for merchants to stay alive and to stay differentiated, right? Otherwise, it's a little bit like a dead loop. So it will not end up in a differentiated and vivid e-commerce landscape, and that is what we try to avoid.
Yeah, so you're talking about effectively trying to attach scores to certain data points and passing those, letting an agent access those data points so it can score a brand effectively.
Yeah.
And then, that's very interesting, actually. As long as everyone's not a 10, then it's fine in every category.
That's true.
And you mentioned that's one of the things you're looking at with the Alliance. What are some of the other things that you might be looking at with the Alliance, or what are you prepping with in terms of the Shopware platform and how that's going to be agentic ready? Obviously, we can't do full agentic commerce today. We'll come back to that in a moment. But
Yeah.
What is it that you are preparing in terms of the future in the product?
Also a lot of different things. Also first of all, we are working on getting, let's say, an own agent layer in Shopware. Also it's more meant in the way of how to make sure that people don't have to spend much time in the Shopware administration anymore. That we automate, let's say, things that basically were in the past were possible to automate, right? That is one aspect. The other aspect is to create, let's say, agents that basically are context aware, so that understand when a certain situation happens in the e-commerce, that also are, let's say, half automated in making or creating ideas on how to optimize the e-commerce business, right?
Yeah.
As an example could be that the agent is detecting that there's a data quality issue, let's say 100,000 products, and the data attribution is basically not correct for 20,000 products in the scope or something, and then putting ideas on the table on how to optimize and adjust the situation. Also, let's say that is one aspect. The other aspect is that we are also working on a solution called to help the merchant on another layer that we find more and more difficult in the today's world. If you think around, let's say, a small to medium-sized merchant, doesn't matter if it is Shopware, BigCommerce, Shopify, or whatever you want to take, then today I would say on average they probably have 8 to 15 additional SaaS services that they consume and pay for a lot of relatively stupid stuff, right? And our idea with Nexus is basically to replace this additional services with kind of a workflow builder approach that you can create processes via drag and drop. You can put in AI and other AI models, also European-based models, to basically solve the same problems in a much cheaper way.
Okay.
And that is because of, again, if you think around EBITDA, what is happening in the balance of a merchant, when on the one side, this Agentic Commerce topic is coming to reality, and on the other side, all the different SaaS providers eat up a lot of your margin. Then I think from a Shopware perspective, we have to solve the problem on the different sides of this balance.
Okay.
Right?
So it sounds like on one side, you might have some tool set and workflows where your agent is going through your catalog, optimizing images based on some kind of spec that you set out, optimizing some of those kind of meta fields and descriptions or whatever. Because effectively right now, what we've got is images, some videos, and some text on a web page. And so is that what you're talking about in terms of that sort of workflow on one end? And then
I would say, yes, that is definitely one part of it. The other part is for sure everything what has to do with data and insights, right? Let's say the idea is a little bit you have your own data scientist living within the Shopware universe.
Yeah, okay.
Basically understanding dynamics and how data is having signals on who is buying, what reason, how could it be optimized, and things like that. Basically, we are trying really to free the merchant of a lot of work and also efforts that he nowadays basically has to spend. Right?
Yeah,
that is the idea. If I think around the e-commerce engine itself, also let's say the consumer-facing side of Shopware, I think basically we have to solve two things. The first thing is make it even easier to create really differentiating experiences.
Yeah.
Because of what I really hate is this copycat world, right? Every shop looks like the same a bit. Also the Shopware world less, and the Shopify world definitely more.
It's all your fault though. You made all these beautiful templates.
And that is I think something that has to change as well. Also to make e-commerce, stunning again, a merchant has also to invest more into experimenting and creating something that is really different. And the effort is nowadays, it's too much effort. And if you can free him up from the time that is the normal e-commerce operation is eating up, and hopefully there's more time to think about the really important things.
Yeah.
Yes, that is one aspect. The other aspect is what I just described. That is really on how to make sure that the agent fully understand what a certain brand, a certain shop is all about. Also this data, intention, experience, trust signal thing, because of, in the end, every shop out there already has exports for Google, for the old world of e-commerce. And so I don't see a problem that OpenAI is not understanding what prices, which availability is there. Also the problem is really the opposite. It will have plenty of data, and we have to make sure to find a way to tell which merchant is really investing into the customer and not just trying to get a quick win on something.
Yeah. And if the customer is going to be increasingly less human and going to be more often an agent on behalf of the customer, what are you thinking in terms of the product and the sort of programmatic journeys that agents might have to go on? Linked to that idea of finding products and getting the right data points so that they can make an assessment. Are you having to make any product changes around those more programmatic journeys?
As if you think about or around complex commerce, I would say yes, because of then you have product configurators, you have probably even 3D visualization of products that are important to understand. Yeah, it's getting a little bit, if it is a simple B2C case, I would say it's not that hard.
Okay.
But if you, on the one hand, say merchant has to differentiate and then he's doing it, but then he's basically incompatible to what the agent is expecting, then we have another problem. So I think it's important really to make sure that on the Shopware side, everything is prepared so that the agent can also deal with more adding complexity that a non-standard merchant probably have. If you think it much further, I think that the storefront side will be less important. I think my estimation is that in 3 years or something, 50% of, let's say, B2C commerce is fully automated. And the other 50% is then really more the experience-driven side. Everybody has a hobby or something where we like to spend time on, and there we would also love to shop on ourselves in the future. But that means, for me, that a merchant has to think on where to invest on the storefront side. I made a little experiment this week, prototype around hyper-personalization, basically a storefront that is trying in a sub-second to estimate the behavior of a new customer. And then it's adapting the front end in real time. It's really interesting. So it's using 205 Flash Mini, and that has nearby real-time capabilities. And then you can see how the storefront is in real time adapting. It understands that you like technical product pages, and then it's adding bullet points and patches. And so that's really interesting to see. That's a bit the direction on how to think about it.
We're finally getting to that personalization piece, which we've been talking about for 25 years. I think my
thesis... That's interesting.
We're finally getting there. We'll see. I think my thesis at university was on personalization, and we're still not there yet. But you're right. If that can happen in real time with those dynamic data points, we're much more likely to get towards personalization. So you've been talking about agents working through the back office admin side of the store. You've been talking about, and those tool sets and workflows, you've been talking about the front of the store, the storefront, with agents coming and looking for particular products that are for sale. And it sounds like from that storefront perspective, Shopware is in a good place for an agent to actually navigate and find what it needs to, or at least you're on that journey towards that optimization, which is obviously driven by the stuff in the back end. But you guys have got that infrastructure and building that product that's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. As I mean, it's interesting enough that, that this whole development around AI happens now. As it's really interesting. Because of, if I think 3 years back, let's say 2020, or 4 years back, I really had the feeling, my brother too, that somehow e-commerce is a little bit stuck. So it's not moving forward anymore. So there's a little bit innovation gap, and it was for us not really clear on how to tackle it. What is really the next big thing that is going to change it massively? And then out of the sun, we see this development in this speed. It's really something where I see a lot of potential. So for me, it's not just a disruption and a lot of problems arising for merchants. I also see it as the opposite. I think it will also unlock a lot of new business models. It will create thousands of new startups, and that is the good side, or how to say it, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And it will definitely favor those who are willing to put in the work and innovate as well, those who are willing to differentiate, which you've already said. Coming back to something you mentioned just a moment ago, which I like the idea of, is how that shift in shopping experiences, that they're much more about the shopping experience. And so I think that the agentic era is going to aid the physical shopping experience. So I might be in a store, I might see something, I might take a picture or snap a QR code or something, and then I want to go on a particular type of buying journey or research journey around that product. And I think that kind of agentic interpretation of what I want to do and take me to the right storefront is going to be an interesting development as well. Whereas now I might be in a store, I might take a picture or go and research something. I might even go to a different retailer's website to buy the same thing.
Yeah.
But ultimately, my experience is not that different or even worse than I'm going to have in the physical store. I might find some more information, but I think there's going to be an augmentation of that physical and digital with AI as well.
Yeah,
it's going to drive that.
100%. I agree. And that is the second large innovation area is for us the whole space of, let's say, 3D commerce, the spatial commerce. It's, the buzzword name for it. And I see a lot of connections between both, because of in the past, it was incredibly difficult for a merchant to create a 3D model for a product page, right? As a nearby, maybe, let's say, for a mid-sized complex product, took maybe a couple of days and cost you a few $1,000 or euros for getting it. And that is also changing. So we have integrated complete 3D generation pipeline. Basically, you can choose out of different options. You can just use product images. You can use a video of the product, and it's generating high quality that you then automatically can assign to the product, and people can play around with it on the storefront. And that's just the beginning for me, because of, I think, also as the average age of consumers is getting lower. So let's say the next generation is coming in, and they are way more than we mobile first. They have a complete different perspective on what is important, and gamification and responsiveness of things. And that is changing also the dynamic on the experience side. So I think e-commerce in the future probably has to be a little bit more like a video game from how it feels. And that is something what I personally really like and also find super interesting, because of that is exactly how it should also be for me. Yeah, to be honest, sure, if you have the boring side of e-commerce, things that you have to buy but you don't want to spend time on it,
exactly,
that will be automated in the future.
Easy.
But the other side, to be honest, I think it should be exactly this. It should be entertaining, it should make a lot of fun, and you should tell your whole family and all your friends about it, because of it was just great. Right?
I think on that, it will be also interesting to see how sort of social and influencer marketing shifts around these products with those kind of tool sets as well, and the way that you can interact with them. It'll be really interesting how that begins to shape as well. What do you...
I'm also thinking,
go ahead.
The influencer side, very short, as I'm also thinking a bit on how this may change in general, right? As I see more and more merchants, or not only merchants, but people that are auto-generating this high-quality studio product images, and also videos with virtual influencers that are telling how great the product is. And I'm thinking a bit on what does it mean in being authentic and being a trustful brand in the future. And that's a bit also a thing where we have to find answers on, because of in a world where you can't trust an image and a video, and it's basically even harder to create a really authentic image to the outside.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think in the recent years, actually, with a lot of large marketplaces entering the market as well, you're getting a lot of substandard products being distributed globally. I've brought a few of them just to see what would happen and see why they're so cheap. But you feel like you've wasted your money, even though it wasn't a huge amount of money for that thing. It's just a terrible product. It looked good in the advertising or on the influencer, but it's just awful. If you wash it, it's even worse.
Yeah, the average Temu ordering experience, I would say.
There you go. Yep, I've tried it and it didn't work. If our future is agents doing a lot of the boring work for us so that we can focus, if we're a merchant, focus on the interesting things around differentiation. And if the future is agents buying a lot of our kind of commoditized goods, like stuff that, again, is just boring, whatever that might be, but we can let them do that for us. And we're spending our time to consumers on the interesting experiences. That is all happening in the agentic era. Like agents are empowered to buy stuff for us and do stuff for us. What are the hurdles that you're seeing today to actually get us over to there? And how long do you think it will be before we're over there?
That's a really good question. I think it really depends not just on what we can doing from a software vendor side. Also, sehr honestly, I think most of the problems are solvable relatively fast, right? If you think around, say, you need a little bit of work on how to create standards. For sure, we need to add even more ways on automating stuff or creating also more automated experiences, maybe. Yeah. But I think the really important thing is the mindset change, not only on the merchant side, but also on the, integration partner side. I think if a merchant doesn't understand that it's necessary to invest into R&D, also investing into differentiation, investing into innovation, investing into the future, if a merchant does think, then I'm pretty sure the merchant will have a big problem in the not so far away future, because the dynamic is changing too drastic to just play it the years before.
To fall asleep, basically. Yeah. You can't fall asleep right now.
Yeah, and on the partner side, a bit the same. I think that eCommerce was for average agency partner in the last 15 to 20 years, let's say, well-running business mission. So let's everything customization, give me 20,000 euros, please, or something like that. And that is, if you think around vibe coding and the effects of cheap it will be in the future to customize things, that requires also change on the agency and integration partner side. I think they have to think in added values and not in how many hours can I sell for this or that customization. In the end, it has to be an equation that makes sense and that is addressing the differentiation problems that the merchant has. I saw so many projects where 10,000 of euros were invested into, let's say, relatively unnecessary details. Of that, where I'm pretty sure they don't have any effect on if somebody is buying a product or not. Also, you know what I mean? That is, the reality check is missing there, and that should normally be the role of a good partner to say, "Hey, guys, we don't think that makes sense." But the reality is, the partner is thinking 100 additional hours,
and this is how I earn my money. Come on.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I think you raise a really good point around the future for that partner ecosystem and agencies and all that investment that they've been making into that checkout rate optimization and their UX, that checkout UX. They spend their ages crafting that stuff. But if it's no longer a human for some of these flows, that's changed. That's changing dramatically. And even if it is a human, that's changing dramatically as well, because the human wants a completely different buying experience now. So it's going to be really interesting. There's still money to be made there, of course, but the goals and the projects are going to be quite different, I think.
Yeah, I think too. Yeah. And it's not just the integration partner side. Also, if I think around the technology partner side, or the different partners in marketing automation, also in payment. If I think around payment, I expect a lot of disruption in the space too, to be honest, because of it is, in the end, if you think around on how an agent will probably pay the transaction, I'm pretty sure the big ones will have own payment, will also own the payment layer of the things.
Yeah.
And that means in the end then that it's not just a merchant problem, but also a payment, a PSP problem.
That's right.
Side. And that is, it will change a lot of things.
That's right. From our perspective, payments is definitely one of the big hurdles in terms of getting autonomous end-to-end commerce happening, because how do you authorize and authenticate and trust an agent to handle payment details? And we've already seen some of the early signs of solving that problem with the PayPals, with the Visas of the world, but it's not solved yet. And it's certainly not in place with any kind of agent end-to-end process yet.
No, it's currently, I would say, also more the prototype phase.
Yeah.
Not the reality phase, but that will hopefully change soon, because of soon as we can automate the payment side as well, we can also move in a different speed.
That's right.
In many scenarios, the missing piece currently.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think what's interesting is I was thinking about back to the Internet of Thing buttons, where you'd have like 10, 15 years ago, you put a button on your fridge freezer and you'd order some more milk. Nobody did that. But that is effectively agentic commerce, where you are authenticating something on your behalf to purchase. However, that agent could choose milk from any vendor that thinks is best. It doesn't have to be pre-programmed into your local supermarket or Amazon or anything. So it's...
but if you think around it from a legal perspective, it's also interesting. So who is then legally doing the transaction?
Yes.
It will be... we will find solutions for it. I'm not shy, but it is an interesting question.
But this gives an opportunity for new services to come to market. Legal has got to innovate, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, it's very interesting. We're coming into land now, and I really thank you for your time. What would you, what kind of conclusive or passing thoughts would you like to share for merchants in this space? What should they be doing? What shouldn't they be doing now? What kinds of questions, you mentioned earlier, what kinds of questions should they be asking?
Yeah, honestly, I think that merchants should really ask different in a really honest way, in direction of looking in the mirror, because of it will be probably the question. It's a relatively binary thing. If a merchant is going to survive or not, I think it's if you can differentiate, if you have something what makes you unique, I would say, yes, you will find a way. If not, definitely not, because of nobody's 525 shop or something. And that is one thing. The other thing is also a mindset thing. How much are you investing into differentiation and experience and innovation? The answer is, no, zero. I would say it's again a binary decision-making process. So to say, I think for me, it has to start with the guy who is owning the company. That is the case for Shopware. That will be the case for you. And that is always the same. If I wouldn't be interested so much in AI and how this is going to change the world, then it would not play this role for Shopware. And that's the point. I think that the merchant has to get a little bit back to the early days of e-commerce. Maybe that was a little bit more like an adventure.
Yeah.
And people were more trying out creative experiences. I wouldn't say that all of them were pretty good, but in the end, they tried out a lot of things. And probably that is a good description. It has back to this, let's try out things, let's find out what is working best and what is working best for the customer. And if somebody gets into this motion, I see a lot of potential for the future, because of the market is changing. That doesn't mean that it is a bad thing for everybody. It can also be a really good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like that, because that kind of, with what you were talking about earlier in terms of actually agents can help understand the data and take actions on that data quite quickly. And so there is, if you can adopt the AI agentic nature of the future, actually you can use that to your advantage to differentiate yourself as well. It doesn't mean that you have to be a robot. You can use that to your advantage if you're a merchant as well.
Yeah.
And of course, at the end of the day, it is ultimately humans that are buying things, even if they are empowering agents. It's not my AI agent who's going to wear a new pair of trainers or sneakers. It's not my AI agent who's going to be like riding around in the car. Ultimately, it's going to be me. And so I do have an opinion. You're still selling to humans, but you're making that human's life better or improving it with the agents, right? So,
yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Stefan. Really appreciate your time, and thank you for talking and telling us about what you guys are doing over at Shopware. It's so good to hear that you're on the forefront of making things happen, but also the standardization and ensuring the future works well. So really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You're welcome.